Hey, welcome to the Star Wars Unlearned Podcast. My name is Josiah Schuett, and I'm joined by Nathan Hawley. What we're doing is we're looking at Star Wars from the perspective of its creator. So we're turning off our fan brains and really just trying to uncover the story that Lucas is trying to tell. We're in the middle of our series on Attack of the Clones, where we explore the filmmaking, the history, the mythology, and everything else that Lucas and his team used to bring this second chapter of the Star Wars saga to life. So join us as we dive in and unlearn what we have learned about the Star Wars story.
Jumping in the scene with introduction of the bounty hunters.
Yes. And actually, before we get into that,
there's
that deleted scene I told you about last time.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
Mason
That's right.
Yoda from the Jedi Temple that I wanted to bring up.
Yes.
Because even though it's not in the movie, I feel like there's some cool. I don't think it conflicts with anything. I don't think they removed it because they changed their mind about it. Like, oh, this stuff doesn't apply. It's more. I think it actually just adds to this. It adds to themes already present in the movie. So, and it talks about the dark side clouding stuff, and I think it's always important to talk about that. So, if you're up for it, I'd like to. Read
yes,
through
please.
that. And then we'll get to the bounty hunters. I know bounty hunters are exciting. I don't want to miss those. So
no, that's fantastic.
Yeah, cool. So we're in the Jedi Temple. I'll just read the script here. It says, exterior Jedi Temple, evening. The vast Jedi Temple sits on an endless flat plain, silhouetted against the traffic-filled sky. Interior Jedi Temple, corridor, evening. Mace Windu and Yoda walk down the long hallway, silhouetted by a lit room at the end. Mace Windu says, why couldn't we see this attack on the Senator? Yoda, masking the future is this disturbance in the Force. And Mace Windu says, the prophecy is coming true, the dark side is growing. And Yoda, and only those who have turned to the dark side can sense the possibilities of the future. Only going through the dark side can we see. Mace Windu.
Wow.
It's been 10 years and the Sith still have not shown themselves. Do you think they are behind this? Yoda. Out there they are. A certainty, that is. Mace Windu. Do you think Obi-Wan's apprentice will be able to bring balance to the Force? Yoda. Only if he chooses to follow his destiny. There's a long silence as they walk away. Only footsteps are heard. So anyway, that's a short little scene there, but they talk.
That's packed.
Yeah, right. I know. There's some fun stuff in there.
Wow. Did you? Okay, so back up just a minute. Did you say masking or asking?
Masking the future is the
masking. Okay.
In the Force. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow, that's really deep. I feel like that sheds a lot. Huh? Why? Do you know why he took it out?
I think it's kind of redundant. Like all these things are kind of set in this one scene, but these ideas are kind of peppered throughout the rest of the screenplay, rest of the story. Like Dooku says to Obi-Wan later, the dark side has clouded their vision, and Yoda kind of said that earlier, where the dark side clouds everything. So, he says impossible to see the future is. So that part isn't like really news, but the idea that only those who have what I picked up on was that only those who have turned to the dark side can sense the possibilities of the future. So it's not like the dark side clouds everything for everybody. It's just for the Jedi. They're the ones that get affected by this, but the dark side users can see through it because it's familiar territory for them. And he says only going through the dark side can we see, which also kind of I think brings up an issue that Anakin deals with, is that when he senses the future, that's one in this environment when he's seeing things in the future. That means the dark side is maybe not flowing through him like the emperor would say, but it's there. Or he's tapping into it, or he's adjacent to it. That's why Yoda says, "Careful you must be when sensing the future, Anakin." In episode 3, he's like, "There's a lot of that can lead to a lot of fear. The dark side is where the future is a lot of the time. Like, the future can be looking too much in the future can lead you to the dark side, and this is kind of explains why. Is because that's something that the dark side users can do in this time when the dark side is clouding everything. It's much easier for the Sith to see in the future, and it's interesting that Anakin's the one who has all these visions of the future.
That is interesting. I'm thinking of some Clone Wars. And again, this is all difficult because Clone Wars comes way after this, like the actual show, So there's, during that Mortis arc, there's a lot of hints that the Chosen One can use both the light and the dark, I'm trying to remember exact lines because I'm probably going to mess this up. But I'm wondering if that plays into George's thinking on how he portrayed Anakin in some of these. Like it's part of his being the chosen one, or not. I don't know. That's a question. So I'm just curious on if you heard anything on that or.
That's a good point. I have not heard anything about that,
Okay.
so I don't really have. I wouldn't be able to speak to that, but that is a good thing to look into once we get to that um, story. Because yeah, you're right. I forgot about that little aspect of in the process of bringing balance in the forest between the light side and the dark. Um, yeah, he's kind of got one hand at each, or 1 foot in each side, in a sense. Um,
I'm curious because I want to say it's the father. You know, the very first episode of that Clone Wars arc, where he uses the light and the dark, and that's like the test to show he's the chosen one. Where he's like, only the chosen one can control my children, and one's represented the light, one's representing the dark, and he's the balance point. Okay. So I'm curious on how George is thinking about that. That's very interesting. But I mean, other Jedi have visions, I guess. Like there's that Clone Wars arc where Ahsoka has a premonition with Padme. So I don't know. I'm just curious on how much George thought through that, or how much we should read into that, I guess. But not to belittle what you're saying at all. I'm just curious on George's thinking, I guess, a little bit more on that.
No, that's true. Yeah, well, obviously have to incorporate all that because another thing is interesting is that when Obi-Wan's talking to Dooku or Dooku's talking to Obi-Wan when he's got him imprisoned on Geonosis, he talks about how the Jedi haven't been able to see the Sith's influence in the Senate because the dark side has clouded their vision, and that's been happening for 10 years. So that's not necessarily the future; that's the present. The Jedi also can't see, So it's not just the future that's being clouded. It's also just I don't know the behind the scenes like motivations of people are clouded. I'm not sure what people are, what their motivations are. Like as we've kind of established already in this movie, there's a lot of people who aren't what they seem. Like we're gonna get to the next scene, which is the bounty hunters, right? Zam she's a changeling. She's actually physically an example of someone who's not what they appear to be. So there's so much of that going on that the dark side is kind of playing into that as well. It's not just the future. It's not just the ability of foresight. It's just everything around you is just kind of clouded. You're in a fog now in the present as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because this movie, I think you said it was kind of almost like a mystery movie, kind of the genre-ish of it. Yeah, where everything's sort of a mystery. It's veiled. Who's telling the truth? Who's not? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. I never really thought about being dark side. Like a dark sider allows you to see through the dark side, I guess, clearly. Never really thought about that. That's kind of a neat concept. How like they're not clouded, but somehow it's clouding the Jedi. And that's interesting. It's hard to get your head around that and kind of wonder like, what does that look like? How did they use the dark side to cloud the lights?
Yeah, it's what I was thinking. Like it's kind of like a poison where like something that poisons you. If you take something that's new to your body and it's a poison, you're like, this is not good for me. But then if you build up a tolerance for it, then you can function with it. And something like the dark side, the dark side is normal to the Sith. Like they're used to being in that territory. So when the dark side starts creeping into the Jedi's territory, that's new for them, and they don't know how to deal with it. It's almost like they're if it's a body, it's like the nervous system or the not the nervous system, but the
immune system?
It's attacking the immune system. Thank you. It's attacking like the new infection. And doesn't really know how to deal with it, or like someone who has built up like a high alcohol tolerance, that's of years of exposure, it doesn't affect them as much. But if it's you're drinking alcohol for the first time, you throw it up right away because it's literally poisoning your body. So I don't know if that's the way I think about it. Just the Jedi are not used to dealing with the dark side, so they can't. I'm not saying that's exactly how Lucas thinks about it, but just to me that was just an example that seemed to line up with what they were getting at here, where the dark side is not a problem for the Sith because they're used to it. That's their whole thing. That's the world they live in. But the Jedi, the dark side is this thing they try to avoid. And so when it's right there in front of them for the first time, over the last 10 years, it's been growing, and they just can't. They haven't been trained to deal with that, I guess, because they don't want to. They don't want to fall because they don't want to fall. They don't want to allow themselves to get too invested in that.
Mm-hmm. Just steer clear of it. Yeah. So just kind of in a refresher from last time, we talked about the future. Maybe it was last time, 1 or 2 times ago, about the future and how that's a big part of what the Jedi do with the Force. And it seems like the Sith are obviously a big part of that too. So the issue is not it's light or dark to glimpse into the future necessarily, right? would it be more? I don't know. I'm trying to distinguish it. Like, how do the Sith and the Jedi differ in the way they use the future here? The Sith use the dark side to cloud the future for the Jedi, maybe.
Well, they both want to look in the future. You know, that was Yoda's thing, and Phantom Menace was, you know, clouded this boy's future as Yoda's always looking into the future, and of course Sidious is looking into the future in the original trilogy, right? You know, like I have foreseen it. You know, everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. That's his big deal. The difference in this part of the story is that because the dark side is growing, it's now only the Sith can see the possibilities of the future clearly, and the Jedi can't. So as Yoda says, only those who have turned to the dark side can sense the possibilities of the future. And he says, only going through the dark side can we see. And he's talking about the present moment. He's not saying in general the Sith are the ones who. I don't know if they necessarily have a different ability to see in the Force or anything, just all things being equal. But as the dark side grows, the Sith can, and so that, of course they both sides are going to try and use that ability to their advantage. So I'm not sure if it's ever established that the Sith look at the Force or use the future in any different way than the Jedi do. I think both they're just trying to, you know, play the chess game, try and see as many moves ahead as you can to try and outthink your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be from what I've gathered so far.
Yeah, that's so cool. Man, great scene. That's really cool, and it just introduces the Sith right away too. Because it's just that would have helped, I think, because, you know, Padme is just so quick. It's Dooku. I mean, we don't know he's a Sith yet, but and I wouldn't think the Jedi do either, obviously. But it'd be a neat tie back to, okay, there is the Sith out there somewhere. Like, what's going on? Who is this?
Actually, that might have been a reason he omitted that from the final cut, was that the Sith is kind of the Sith sort of is this kind of background thing you don't really think about until Dooku brings it up to Obi-Wan. So maybe they're kind of meant to be in the background more, and where like, oh, that was the bad guys of the last movie, and then the reveal in this movie is, oh no, the Sith are still around. They're still plotting. They're still doing stuff. Because you have the reveal of Sidious at the very end. It's like, oh no, he's still around. He's been gone for most of the movie, but then he shows up at the very end. I guess Dooku doesn't mention him by name, but still.
Gotcha. Wow, what a cool scene, though.
Maybe you wanted that to be more of a mystery. Yeah, I don't know. But I thought that was a fun little scene, and even though, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel weird at talking about the deleted scenes, even though we're supposed to be talking about the movies themselves. But sometimes I think they're fun. Just again, don't build your whole idea of what Star Wars is, but just based on the deleted scenes. But you can use those to kind of help, you know, reshape your perspective. Like, oh, actually, I wouldn't have thought about these other scenes this way had I not looked at this deleted scene. Maybe that can get me closer to Lucas's vision rather than where we start off with fans. Maybe it can get us closer to it. So that's why I think sometimes it's nice to read those, but
absolutely
examine those. But yeah, so I like.
And it definitely gives you a glimpse into what George is thinking, or at least possibilities. You know, like here you would learn that he was definitely thinking Darksiders can see through the cloud of the dark side. You know, like it's not cloudy to them. That's cool. Yeah, things like that. Nice little tidbit. Absolutely. Yeah, nice. That's a great scene.
Yep. I think now we can go to the bounty hunters.
Okay.
Short little scene, but it's cool.
Now, canonically, we've not seen bounty hunters yet, right?
I was thinking about that. Yeah, have we? There aren't really any in episode 1, right? Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, this would have been the first one.
I'm sure there's like EU or Legends stuff that has some kind of bounty hunter showing up in episode 1, but just from the movies,
George's story, yeah.
George's, yeah, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
We haven't seen bounty hunters yet. This is the first time. And the same would ring true for, you know, echoing the old trilogy, episode 5, first time we get bounty hunters, right? Because there's no bounty hunters in episode 4.
If special edition wise, Boba Fett shows up in the Jabba the Hutt scene.
Well, that's true. And Greedo, I guess, technically.
And Greedo, yeah.
So maybe not.
Oh, true. Yeah, Greedo.
Maybe
so
not.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
That would have been there, but they don't take as big a role as they do in Empire. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, I don't think there's any bounty hunters in episode 1. Maybe some character in the background that I don't know the name of. I looked in the visual dictionary, they'd show up and be like, "Hey, this was actually a bounty hunter." But yeah. So I think Zam and Jango are the first ones we see. This scene wasn't in the original script. It was more mysterious about who was doing what. You stayed with Obi-Wan and Anakin in the apartment, and then the robot shows up, and then when it flies back to where it came from, that'd be the first time you see Zam, and I don't think you wouldn't see Django at all until he shows up. Maybe when he flies off after shooting the dart. I think that would have been the first time you see him. But Lucas, I know you talked about adding this scene just to make him it added tension, even though it was less mysterious. It still added tension because now there was the plan of like, or you could see that there's a plan in place to still kill the senator. Or Padme's still in danger, and so that when Obi-Wan and Anakin are kind of just hanging out outside her bedroom, it's like no, that there's an active assassination attempt like ready to happen. Like you guys need to be alert, to ramps up the tension. You swapped mystery for tension, I guess, by adding this scene. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I love the scene how just visually striking it is. It opens up with these bright billboardy kind of looking things, which is kind of unique. We haven't really seen something like that in Star Wars up to this point, even if you include the old trilogy. Really, not a lot of that just like striking, almost like comic book look. Just really vibrant, bright, and that's just really cool. I think because we start to get the underworld feel here, which we've never seen before. In both in canon wise, like timeline wise, or in Star Wars up to this point, like 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. This is really cool. I remember there's a ton of stories like that back in the 80s and 90s, that like in novels and stuff, they talk about Coruscant, but no one really knew what it was exactly. And here George is fleshing it out, and we get to see the underworld. It's just really kind of cool. Yeah, it's all
like
dark, all shadows. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was say but I was just gonna pick up on that. Yeah, it's all dark and shadowy, but also these like neon or their version of like neon signs, and so it's very like more of the less of like the shiny futuristic like beautiful looking towers of Coruscant that we saw last movie. As you say, now there's advertisements. They go to a club. There's all these um, ads or gambling stuff. Just getting much more the darker seedier parts of the city. Yeah, and so even though they're bright colors and they're not necessarily like threatening or anything, it just associates in our brains that idea of a darker. This is the worst part of town. This is not not uptown where Padme lives, where the nice apartments is. This is kind of the the place you don't want to be. Don't get caught in a dark alley here at night. That kind of vibe.
Exactly. Yep. And I like it too, the mystery here, because we don't see Django. I mean, you can see his silhouette basically, but you don't get to see what he is or who he is or anything like that. That's a big reveal. So, especially for those Boba Fett Mandalorian fans, as we'll get to. Yeah. So, do you know? This is a question. So, my brother's favorite video game of all time is Bounty Hunter, which was a video game that came out, I don't know, early 2000s maybe, that tells Django's backstory a little bit. It's really cool. I don't know how canon that is. I mean, Lucasfilm put it out, or LucasArts back then. Do you know anything like that? I mean, I know George always kind of held things loosely, like the books don't. He didn't go with the books at all. Those were just kind of separate things altogether. What do you know about video games in that world?
Yeah, so anything outside of the movies, Lucas didn't really consider it. Every once in a while, he'd bring something into his story. Like Ayla Sakura, for example, was a character that started in the comics, and he brought her in. So, but unless he does that, most of the time he's just not. He's maybe peripherally aware sometimes of what's happening. He had a little more input in things like video games or TV show like the Clone Wars micro series. He had much more input in, but the further you go down, like comic books and like novels and stuff like that, he really had much less to do with those. So occasionally he'd be they would show him, and he'd probably I don't know how much uh, involvement he had with particularly that video game Bounty Hunter, but we know from the movie that Dooku met with um, Django to make the clones and everything. So that part, of course, is definitely from George. But the rest of it, most of the plot, because that's at the very end of the game. So most of the plot of the video game, I'm not entirely sure. I would doubt that any of that really comes from Lucas, or that he would incorporate that that he has any of that in his head when he's thinking of Django as a character in terms of his backstory. So just because Lucas was never really involved with that kind of stuff to that level of detail. the few times that he is, it's very obvious because he likes to bring them into his story. Like Ventress was eventually originally going to be the bad guy for this movie, so it was a concept that turned into Dooku that later he folded into Clone Wars. But
Yeah, that's right.
so little
That's
things
cool.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was
But
really
yeah,
curious.
I've never heard him talk about Jango's backstory ever actually. So
It's really good. Have you played the game or seen it or anything? Watched the
I've
cutscenes?
played a little bit, and I've seen like clips here and there of like the cutscenes, but I've never, not really. I heard I hear it's great though. I mean, and from what I remember playing it a long time ago, it was fun.
Yeah,
So yeah.
it is really fun. And it's actually getting a re-release. Like they just announced it a couple weeks ago,
Oh really?
so it's really appropriate right now. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. It is really fun. Like it doesn't really break any canon or anything. In fact, it is very interesting because like I'll tell you the real premise of it, and then we can move on. But Dooku he's hiring all the best bounty hunters to try and capture this rogue Jedi who's become in charge of this like underworld drug lord kind of thing. Long story short, Jango's after her. This rogue Jedi's name is Kamari Vosa, and what's interesting is that her lightsabers are Ventress's lightsabers that they actually bring into the Clone Wars, like exact. So I always thought that was really interesting, and it's just cool. You know, like they talk about Bogdan. You know how Jango says that I met a man named Tyrannos on one of the moons of Bogdan or whatever. It's just cool. They just fill in that in. They fill the origin story of the Slave One Jango ship. So it's just cool.
Oh okay. Cool.
How it was like a police ship and it's supposed to be one of the best, and it's part of this like fleet, but Jango blows them all up, so there's only one left in existence. You know, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
kind of fun. So
Yeah.
nothing really canon breaking at all, but I was always curious about that because it says LucasArts, so I was just curious on how much he had an input in, and I know he had an input on the game 1313 that was supposed to come out. That George was thinking at least some of that. I don't know how much, but there were rumors that he was involved in that story. It was a canceled game that Disney canceled right before, or right after they bought it. About this very thing, like CD Underworld. That was with Boba Fett and some other guys. But anyway, I was just curious if you heard anything or what you knew. I have no idea how tied in George is to video games specifically. So
A lot of it was the fact that he was just busy with the movies, and so after he finished Revenge of the Sith, and then that's when he started getting interested working on Clone Wars, and so he had much more time to get invested in things like Force Unleashed, for example. He had some input involved with that game, and it's not like he generated any ideas. He just kind of they would bring him, they would pitch him stuff, and he would kind of push them in the right direction from there. So he again, like more he likes to be involved with stuff if it's interesting to him, but for the most part, every time Lucas talks about EU or Legends, especially from this period, like during the prequels and during Clone Wars, he really just kind of says like that's a different world from mine. I don't really get involved with it. Occasionally, I'll bring some stuff in, but for the most part, you can just assume that that is not part of his story.
gotcha. Okay. Very good.
Although all that sounds really cool, though. That's a
That is
fun
really
thing.
cool.
If it doesn't actually contradict anything he says, then great, have fun with it. You know, that's I mean, obviously, like whatever. Even if it does contradict it, there's a lot of Clone Wars comics that I like that very much contradict the show Clone Wars, but I still like them, so I still read them, I still enjoy them. But it's fun when you find something that doesn't actually conflict with Lucas's story. You're like, actually, this could work. You know, if you wanted it to. So yeah.
Yeah, I know Dave Filoni did that a lot. He tried to draw stuff, like pull stuff in from old video games, old novels, things like that in the Clone Wars specifically, before Disney got all into it. But yeah, he pulls a lot in from video games and Ventress's lightsabers right there. So, which actually came from Tartakovsky, right? Because he kind of gave that design. But
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, it's really cool. Like Dave was trying to tie all these together, and George was like, "Yeah, whatever." But there's some cool stuff.
Every once in a while, they got one in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you know? Do you want to wait to talk about Jango, like who he is? And there's a lot of like George really stirred the pot in with Jango here. You want to wait for that, or should we?
Yeah, let's wait until he's actually properly introduced.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a lot there I could talk about. So, okay, I will wait.
And I realized I wrote down a quote from Lucas about this scene and why he added it, because stumbling around or they're trying to explain it, I could just read it. I wrote it down. My past
It's
self
okay.
was smarter than my present self because I wrote it down knowing that I would probably want to talk about this. So I'll
It's
just read
okay.
it
Sounds
because
good.
I added that scene to show that our heroes were in peril before people talked about them being in peril, but we never saw it. By cutting to this scene, I was able to create more of a sense of danger and tension. So I wasn't just making it up. That's why he added the that scene here. So that's it.
Sounds good. So, any indication as to why Zam is kind of like why is Django not getting his hands dirty here? George, talk about that. I've always wondered that.
Interesting.
Sorry, I'm blindsiding you with more questions.
No, you're good. No, you're fine. No, well, it's good. Off the
totally
top of
fine
my
if you don't
head,
know.
I don't think I have heard any reason given.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, they're trying to keep, you know, Django says here, like, my client is getting impatient. So even though she's reporting to him, it's not his idea. Like, this goes further back. So again, adding to that mystery. Like, if it was just, I think it just gives them a trail to follow. I think just from a story perspective, you keep your bad guys far away from. You keep the goal, the reveal, whatever the information your characters need to find. You keep that as far away from them as you can at the beginning, so there's a longer journey for them to get there at the end. So, yeah, it's like it all leads to Django, which leads to Dooku and Geonosis, and ultimately Sidious at the end. But yeah, I think that's the only like functional reason I could think of. But I haven't heard anything George say any story or thematic reason why that would be the case. He might
Gotcha.
have. I just don't know about it.
Okay. Yeah, I've always wondered that. Like, why didn't Django do this? In the video game, we see that Zam kind of just they both end up on the same job, and they kind of competed against one another. And Django like ousts her, like he almost defeats her, kind of thing. But he ends up having compassion and bringing her on as the team, kind of thing. But I mean, who knows? But I was curious on that because, well, I've always just wondered. But also, this movie, like one of the main points is that we're trying to, like, Palpatine is trying to get the clones revealed, right? So I've always wondered, like, the client here, that's Newt Gunray, right? But I'm assuming it's under Dooku's command. Like, who's the client here that's ordering this assassin?
Oh, interesting. I always assumed it was Dooku, but yeah, that's a good question. Could be
because Palpatine's trying to, like, his goal is to get the clones revealed and the war started, right? I mean, that's like,
yeah.
what everyone's like. That's the point of this assassination, right?
I think I'm assuming it was Dooku. It's never stated anywhere that Gunray and Django have any kind of relationship. So I'm assuming it comes from Dooku directly, but of course Dooku's doing it on behalf of. If he is doing it, he'd be doing it on behalf of the Trade Federation, but probably because Sidious wants it to. That's interesting. That's a nice little. There's a rabbit hole I could go down. Like, well, who's who's motivating who to do what here? Huh? I haven't thought about that.
And we're never told. I was just wondering if you heard, because we do get inclinations at the end of the movie when Newt Gunray shows back up. Like, hey, has this happened yet? Like, I want her head on my desk. Like, come on. Like, you just get the sense that he's really driving this. Even though I could see something like Dooku being like, okay, I will hire the assassin to satisfy your revenge. I don't know, but I could see Dooku manipulating that or playing that somehow. I don't know. We don't know. We're not told. But I was wondering if you read anything or heard anything on what George has to say.
That's interesting. Though I like that. I have to, trying to figure out what the plan is there. Because Lucas would have had to figure that out in order to write these scenes. So he had. I'm sure he's got like a little outline off to the side with like a little branching tree from this name to this name to this name, where it all leads to, like a good writer should. So he probably does. He probably has a plan for that. I just haven't heard him talk about that. But I'm sure we can follow some clues and figure it out at some point. I'll have to add that to my list of things.
Okay, to the comeback list. And that's why that is the purpose of the assassination, right? Like, it is to reveal the clones eventually, or are they actually trying to kill Padme? I mean, I know the bounty hunters think like they're actually trying to kill her, but I'm just thinking, like, from the Sith's perspective, are they know this is a stepping stone, or are they actually trying to kill Padme?
Well, I think she is also like a huge. She's in opposition to the creation of the army, so she would be a hindrance to them making. The goal is to have the army created and have get them embroiled in this conflict and have the Jedi get all tangled up in there too. So Padme is a stumbling block to that, or would be a big obstacle to getting that to happen. So taking her out would be advantageous for them because her voice wouldn't be there to voice the dissenting opinion on it all. But then, that's a good question. Whether
So is this a failed attempt that Palpatine's okay with either way? You know, like if they kill Padme, he's fine because he can blame the Separatists and start the war, shut the silence up, or shut the opposition up. But if it failed, he's okay because he can use this to manipulate the Jedi and send Anakin with Padme. I mean, is he thinking that at all, or like, do you know how intentional this all is on how it plays out?
I don't. You're really stumping
Okay.
me today. I have no answers for you today.
I've not read anything or heard anything on it, but
Yeah, I
you
haven't
just have
either.
to wonder with Palpatine because you always wonder how much does this guy know? Yeah, and how much
I
was part of
think
the plan and how much is him improvising? I don't know.
I think he definitely, he was totally fine with her dying. I don't think he's not trying to thwart these assassination attempts. So I think he definitely wants her dead, but I don't think it's the biggest problem if she stays alive to him either. Because like at the end of the day, he gets his way, just like last movie where he wanted her dead, but even though he wanted her dead, her staying alive didn't actually make too much of a difference to him. Um, so maybe it's more the same, but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into that one more.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
No worries, man.
Really, I
No
don't know that
worries.
one.
I've just always wondered how much Palpatine really knows, like what's going to play out. So, because he's clearly manipulating things, but it's just how much into the future can he see? How much is he orchestrating? How much is he just letting roll? You know, I
Yeah,
just don't know.
it's harder in this movie because he's not in it that much. He was much more. We saw him much more in the first one. He was much there pulling the strings more. And again, in this one, he's really kind of in the background. Like we don't even see him until the very 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 end. So it's hard to know how he's reacting to these things happening, these events. So he's we've seen him a lot in Revenge of the Sith and a lot in Episode 1, but this one he's kind of off to the side. So yeah, it'd be probably it's probably there's probably something to find out there. I just would have to. It's gonna be tricky. Have to maybe the screenplay has more stuff.
Yeah. Well, we know Palpatine's really good at this, right? Like he's really good at seeing into the future, making a plan, but also improvising if he needs to. He's very good at that. So I've always wondered how much of this is improv, how much of it is, planned out. Because I could easily see him being like, you know what, if Padme's killed, that could possibly throw Anakin into a huge loop, and manipulate that or not. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But
I think more. Now I'm thinking about. I think his plan is more just the rabbit trail from is the assassination attempt. Like if Padme dies and they're going to try and investigate the murder, figure out who did it, and they'll lead them to the clones. If she stays alive, and they're just trying to protect her, they'll still try and investigate it. If they find any evidence of if they capture Zam or if he finds the dart, little things like that. There's something that's going to lead them to that investigation. So I think Palpatine cares about that. I don't think he cares about Anakin and Padme's relationship at all
okay,
at this point. It
gotcha.
doesn't. I haven't seen any. Doesn't we don't get any indication that he starts caring about Padme until Revenge of the Sith,
Wow.
in terms of
Okay.
as a tool to manipulate Anakin. Because we also don't really see him caring much about Anakin in this, like other than him, boosting his ego here and there. Like he's curious about, he's interested in him, but I don't know if he's part of the. He doesn't talk about a new apprentice. He doesn't talk about him being part of the plan until Revenge of the Sith. Right now he's got Dooku doing all this stuff for him, so Anakin isn't much use to him yet because he's still at this point he's a teenager. He's very volatile. He's very, I don't know. He's still kind of unformed yet. He's still in process. This is kind of his beginning of his adventure into adulthood. And so by the time he gets to Revenge of the Sith, then he's a tool that he's a fully formed tool that Palpatine can use. I think at this point he's still the Jedi don't know what to do with him. Maybe Sidious doesn't know what to do with him either. I don't know. That's just a couple thoughts. I don't know if that's not from Lucas or anything, but I haven't seen anything in the movies. I can't remember anything where it seems like he cares about Anakin and Padme's relationship at this point.
Well, I'm just thinking of
I
that
think,
scene, because he assigned, like it's Palpatine's idea to assign Obi-Wan and Anakin to Padme. Like that's very
yeah,
intentional.
true, true.
And yeah, how about an old friend? That kind of thing. And then we see him grooming Anakin a little bit. Yeah, but it's not much, right? So
Yeah, I always took that to mean that was just his way of getting Padme to um, acquiesce to having Jedi involved. Like she wouldn't, like she didn't want security, but oh, it's someone you know. Okay, that was more just okay. I want to get the Jedi involved in the assassination, so they can find the trail to the clones. And I think the only way to do that was to get her to say yes to that would have been to have it be a Jedi that she knows, Obi-Wan and Anakin. But it could, but yeah, it could be more of him trying to. Yeah, it's so tricky. It's a good point. You bring up a good point because how far ahead is he thinking? Is he testing Anakin at this point early on? He might be. I never thought he was, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And we're not told. And George is really good at
Yeah.
this. This is why Star Wars fans are known for speculating. Because, there's hints that he's very intentional with everything he does, right? Like the end. But at the same time, we've already talked about how Palpatine's like, he's not going to lose anything if Anakin dies, but he's going to play his game while he can. And I often wondered, because pathway to the dark side often is that fear, that attachment, the fear of losing that attachment. So I don't know. I've just wondered. That was my interpretation, but that's interesting. I've never even thought about what you just said. So yeah, I want to know, George. What was your thought here, man?
Is he manipulating Padme there, or is he manipulating Anakin? Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out as we go further. Maybe because I'm reading through the behind the scenes book on this movie, so maybe that something will be revealed there. I need to finish that because I'm behind. Because I finished reading the first one for episode 1 before we started, and I'm behind on this one. So anyway, but yeah, we'll get to it. But I don't know right now. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we do know that Palpatine at least wants Padme out of the way, whether that's
Yes.
on Naboo hanging out with Anakin or killed.
Yes,
So
exactly. Yes.
he doesn't want her here for this. Whether he knows he's going to manipulate Jar Jar in that, I don't know. But he's definitely trying to get her out of the way for something. But we'll see. I guess. I hope you find out. I'm really curious to know.
Exactly. I do too. No, that would be
Yeah.
really cool if I could find that out. Yeah.
Nice. Well, sorry, I'm full of questions, but
No, you're good. Well, those are good. That keeps me on my toes, and it keeps me researching in the right areas. So.
Yeah, and I thought about that with this scene because it is so important. I mean, when they're trying to kill Padme, like it's not just a one and done. Sam says, I hit the ship, but I hit a decoy. Like we're not done yet. We got to fulfill this mission. So it doesn't seem to me that these two are in on the secret anyway. Of like, these guys just think I need to kill this person. That's as far as they're thinking.
Yeah,
and
it seems they've been paid to do something, so they're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like these guys know. Oh, maybe he doesn't. Maybe our client doesn't want her dead. Maybe he does. That doesn't seem like any indication of that. Just like, no, our job's to kill this lady. So, but with the Sith, I've wondered how much they know. So, anyway, detour.
No, good one. Good one.
Anything on the bounty hunters before we move back to the apartment?
Just the threat of the larger force behind it. Like my client's getting impatient. There can be no mistakes this time. Just that there's a lot. There is a powerful force and behind all this assassination attempt. It's not just it wasn't just a random thing. There is someone really wants this to happen, and there are gonna be consequences for this. Like someone in power, someone very powerful is behind it. It's not just a random guy that Padme snubbed one day. Like he just gets angry at her. This is like something this comes from the top, somewhere. So just that threat over that. Even the bad guys here are the people they're reporting to they have power of them, and we find out Zam dies because she fails. So there's just the threat. We don't know it's the Sith yet at this point in the story, but just the fact that there is some threat even bigger than the present danger of these bounty hunters is kind of set up here. But other than that, that's kind of the last thing I had on that scene. So we can go into the next one if you want.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, man, Tamora Morrison, the guy who plays Django in the Clones. Dude's awesome. What a menacing guy. Like, he's just so cool. I love his voice because we don't really see his face that much, in this movie. But man, his voice is just you just hear it and you're like, "Woof, this guy's got some grit." He's got some power, some threat. It's kind of along the lines of what you're saying there. Great voice, great actor. But I just want to say that before we move on.
Oh yeah,
and we'll
absolutely.
see
Totally
him
agree.
again. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will. Oh yeah, I loved the Clones. I loved Jango Fett as a kid. I loved his voice and everything. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like everything about him was cool. But also threatening, like dangerous too. Like, ooh, kind of scary. Especially when he and Obi-Wan have that kind of stare down on Kamino. It's like, whoa, this guy's intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. Yep. Just wanted to say that because that's the first time we hear his voice, and just to reinforce what you're saying. Yeah, we feel the threat here. Like this is, yeah, there's no room for failure anymore. Like, come on, get this done.
And it's crazy because it's the introduction of Django. Yes, it's also the introduction of like Boba Fett. Like that voice, that character is just becomes the clones. It's there's no indication, I think, at this point, like how big of a deal this that what Django Fett adds to Star Wars is. Like he becomes the clones, he becomes Boba Fett, or he leads become them. But because of him, all those things happened. And it's just like even though it's D. Bradley Baker's voice and not Tamora Morrison's voice we hear in Clone Wars, it's still the same character, still evoking that same idea, that same grit, that same uh, intensity that the clones have. It comes from Django. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's just amazing like how far that how big a part of how much a part of the Star Wars universe. I can't. How do I say this? How large a part of the Star Wars universe that character is.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
or how much of an effect he has. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
forget about that. But this is where it starts, right here with this little scene.
Yeah, isn't that great? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about it last time. George always, at least initially, intended Boba, like even in the old trilogy, to be tied to the stormtroopers. Um, he wasn't supposed to be just completely separate. And there was always, like, I think his initial thought was he was a super commando kind of thing, and then shifted more into the bounty hunter. But then we, like we talked about last time, maybe we talked about it, but George originally thought that the clones were going to be the stormtroopers, that the stormtroopers were clones. And so it's just not out of left field, I guess, because a lot of people had problems with Boba being tied to Django as a clone. But that's not necessarily a new idea. This was something George was toying around with for a while. But
Yeah,
to
I
us
mean
as
the Clone Wars
fans,
are
it was
brought up
like,
in
what?
Episode 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
from the very beginning, there was this idea of all these clones doing some kind of clones around there doing something. And the Super Commando. I think the original intention was there going to be a group of Super Commandos. Um, that there have been many people wearing the Boba Fett armor, but I think maybe because of budget or maybe because the story changed. I can't remember exactly that eventually he became a bounty hunter and he was no longer in the white armor. It became his own thing that was unrelated to the stormtroopers. But initially, there was that idea. And I think it's cool how I guess I never thought about this as a kid, but I thought it's cool you know, to go from the Boba Fett armor and kind of morph into the stormtrooper armor. Like you see the clones are kind of start become this kind of halfway point where it's like at first you're like, well, they're both wearing buckets on their heads, and there's some black, screen or black kind of plastic they're both looking through, but to kind of transform them from that kind of T visor into the stormtrooper like skull face, I think it was kind of cool. Um, that I never would have saw that coming as a kid. So I think that's cool. I don't know when exactly he made that decision to do that, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I just say that as we're talking about Boba and Django, and yeah, a lot of fans were really did not like that choice. But this isn't new. This isn't new. George didn't sit down with episode 2 and be like, I think I'm going to change everything with Boba being with Django and the stormtroopers. And no, it was. I mean, some of it was hammered down, obviously, but or more honed in. But yeah, not a new concept.
No, the prequels are full of ideas that Lucas really wanted to incorporate in the original trilogy, but for one reason or another, time, budget, or it didn't work for his story at the time. He now has the opportunity to bring them back in. So there's a lot of new ideas as well, but a lot of stuff in the prequels is stuff that's been with him since the beginning. Um, Mace Windu was one of the first characters that
Oh,
he wrote
really? I
about
didn't know
his
that.
original screenplays, and he changed it to Windu. But that was one of the first. I think the main characters, one of the first main character names before he eventually got to Luke Starkiller and Skywalker and all that was Mace
Wow.
Windu. Yeah,
Ah, I
so
did not know that.
stuff like
There you
that.
go. Huh.
Yep.
Nice. So when you're playing Star Wars Trivial Pursuit next time, you guys will be ready. Nice. Wow, very good. How about we jump into the apartment scene here?
Sounds good.
Okay. So where would you like to begin?
Oh, it's Obi-Wan and Anakin's scene. It's another one of those scenes. We talked about that added scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin in the elevator to kind of soften their relationship before they are at each other's throats in the next one. But here's another moment where you really see that Obi-Wan has grown to care for Anakin. They have that relationship. They've been together for 10 years, and it's the older brother, younger brother kind of mentor mentee relationship. Like he asks about his mother, like he's tired. He's asking about him because he cares. He's not this looking at him as this pathetic life form. Like what's this? Like he did with Jar Jar and Anakin in episode 1. He actually cares about him, and Anakin reveals this dream he's been having to Obi-Wan. And so there's trust there. There's a relationship there. There's a bond. But of course, it's this again. We got to remind ourselves that this is a weird time for Anakin. He's just started having these dreams recently. Anakin hasn't been this tortured teenager for the last 10 years. That he hasn't always just been whiny, and this is just a weird time in his life. Just we pick it up in the story right when things start going weird for him. So he was. I like to think of him more that he was like that little boy in episode 1 for most of that time, and this is kind of the first time where he's starting to turn into that weird, awkward, angsty kind of teenager. And so that these dreams are new. He's not sleeping. He just recently started sleeping poorly. So just it's very quick, but there's a bonding between Anakin, or there's a demonstration of the bond between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the scene, and it also sets up this problem he's been having behind the scenes of not sleeping well and having these dreams about his mother. And of course, Obi-Wan's, dreams pass in time. And he's like, no, these are actually, as we'll learn, very different kind of dreams. These aren't just, just a bad dream. These dreams have a lot of weight to them that Anakin finds out. And of course, that line where he says, "I'd much rather dream about Padme." Oh, you will, bud. You will, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be the kind of dreams you want. That's also going to be a very, very bad.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is good. Yeah. It's interesting too. I'm curious to know if George has commented on this, but here, at least at the beginning of the scene, I'm just watching it. Anakin's really it almost feels dark. Like the room's dark, but I mean like just his presence, like he just talks about how what do you say? How he doesn't, or Padme doesn't like Anakin looking at her through the cameras. Like he that's his thought, because Obi-Wan's like, what's going on? Why are the cameras covered? She covered, or she covered the cameras. She didn't like me looking at her. Let's see if I can find the other line. There's another line he mentions too. Shoot, I just had it. But you just get this real sense, and George talks about this when he cast Hayden Christensen. He said, I wanted a man who wasn't just pure evil, like you could feel a good side to him, but there was a darkness to him. And you kind of get this sense, like, not necessarily an evil, but just kind of a tall, dark, and handsome sort of guy, I mean, again, we're seeing Vader as a teenager, is that kind of like, what do you picture? Oh, he says here, Obi-Wan says, any activity up here, and Anakin says, quiet as a tomb. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a darkness here. Almost this, like, kind of creepy, dark side to Anakin. I could be reading into that, but was George commented on that? I mean, I know he said that about hiring or casting Hayden Christensen, but I was wondering if he's commented more on that, if you've heard something like that.
Not on these lines in particular, but just in his overall performance. Yeah, there he asked to have that for Anakin. He needed someone who had that darkness in them, but also had that light in them as well, and so he could dip into both when he needed to. And so yeah, that is present here. It's funny. I realized I skipped a scene. I realized I forgot that they talk. Obi-Wan had this little interaction here about using her as bait and everything. Then we cut back to Zam Wesell, and then we cut back to them. So sorry, I realized my notes are out of order, so that's why I skipped a couple scenes here. But yes, I'm glad
it's okay
for anchoring us back where we should be. Yeah, I think you're right. Anakin is just kind of he's just in a weird mood since Padme's come back into his life. Added to that fact, as we'll learn in the next scene, that he's having these dreams about his mom. So yeah, there is that. That is probably what's stirring up those kind of darker, that kind of sullen attitude where he's just like, it's quiet as a tomb. He's like, I don't think she liked it. He's just, or he does have a bit of, darker attitude than he did before. So I haven't heard Lucas say anything about this scene in particular, and those lines. He usually doesn't talk about things that granular or that detailed. Usually talks in broader strokes about things. And And so, like, yeah, you're right. When you've heard him talk about hiring Hayden, and because of he had that ability to have that darkness in him while still give you the sense of, oh no, he's at heart he's a good kid. He's just he is the hero. But he's going through a really dark time right now, and the best of him is not on display all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I was curious. And we also get a sense of who Padme and Anakin are in this scene too. I mean, we don't even see Padme yet, and you get the sense of who she is. Like, she took the initiative to cover the cameras. Even if this isn't meant to be creepy, I mean, like, I don't want a teenage boy looking at me while I sleep kind of thing. Even if that's not even the heartbeat behind it, even if you get the sense of, like, it's Padme just saying, like, I don't need help, like, exactly. I'm fine.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I don't get the sense it's meant to be like a peeping Tom kind of thing, but just
no, absolutely.
Padme being Padme.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, that's what Obi-Wan even backs him up. He's like, why is she thinking, like, no, we need to be able to see in case someone tries to attack her. She's like, no, I got R2, I'll be fine. I don't need you guys here. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we also get to see who Anakin is too, because I don't think he's meant to be creepy per se, like kind of stalker, teenage boyish kind of thing, maybe a little, I don't know, but he comments here like, I hate just sitting here waiting for something to happen. That's just a very Anakin thing to do. He wants to get out there and take the charge. He doesn't want to play defense. He's offense all the way. So, kind of nice little tidbits in there. And you can tell he's just feeling for it. I mean, you can just feel the weight on Anakin. I mean, he's taking this all personally. Like, she covered the cameras. Oh, she must not like me, or I mean, he's just very focused on himself right now. He's like, yeah, Padme, she told me R2's programmed to sense anything, that kind of thing. But I don't know, it just seems like he's just like, I mean, I could just relate to that as my teenage years, where it's like anything a girl does that you're remotely interested in, you're just hanging on every piece of it.
Yeah, it makes you self-conscious. And
yeah. Mm-hmm. I just feel like George captured that really well here, where he's just, I mean, we can relate to that, just back in middle school, high school, or whatever. It's like, oh man, she didn't look at me, like, or whatever. And most of the time the girls are just not even paying attention, just dorky guys like that. But yeah, I could be wrong, but that makes me think about that. So
it's a good call. And I also like that, he brings up that, they're using her as bait, and it was her idea. That she's, again, a very different Padme from the last movie, where she's very much, she's like, I don't need your help. I'm gonna, we're gonna catch the killer anyway, and we're gonna do it my way, and we're not gonna, she's very much, she's the mature one. Yeah, again, it's setting up her maturity, and Anakin's kind of like lack thereof. So
yeah, and I like to back that up when Obi-Wan kind of calls him out on that. You're using her as bait. Like, he's getting ready to blame Anakin. Anakin's right away, no, it was her idea. Yeah, exactly. This isn't me for once.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and there's still that. Yeah, before we get to that moment I was talking about, where they're softer towards each other, you do get, again, more of that Obi-Wan and Anakin, like, he's like, no harm will come to her. I can sense everything going on in that room. Like, I don't think you're that, like, you're not that good yet. He's like, oh, and you are? He's like, yeah, I am, maybe. What do you know? It's like, there's a bit of that, like, don't disrespect me. I'm still your teacher,
Yeah, it's, boy, the cockiness of Anakin here we really see. I laugh at this line all the time because, and yours are, Anakin says. Oh boy, possibly. I use that line a lot just when, like, talking to the kids, or if Kelly's got a question or something.
Oh, really? That's funny.
It's a fun one.
Possibly.
But you can just, I love it. I just love like, it's meant to be awkward, right? Again, this is awkward. But I love the sense, I mean, here's this teenage boy with his older brother, Master, by the books Master, and this teenage boy who just wants to play offense. He's just connected to this lady. I mean, I can sense everything going on. I got this, like, I'm gonna take charge. I'm in control. Oh man.
Well, and also, you get everyone's. Oh, go ahead.
Nope, that's okay. What were you saying?
Well, just saying, and everyone's been telling him his whole life he's the chosen one. That he knows he's special. And Palpatine's been, stroking his ego, and so all of a sudden he's just, of course, why wouldn't he be arrogant? Why wouldn't he think he's the best? And when every time Obi-Wan's like, no, calm down, he's like, but I thought I was awesome. I thought I was the I thought it was like everyone's favorite Jedi, and he's like, nah, take it down a couple notches. I don't know if you're ready yet. So, which is, and it's
Yeah.
funny, they're both kind of wrong. I think you both kind of see like, okay, Obi-Wan needs to give Anakin a break, and Anakin needs to reel it back. So they both kind of have to meet, as Mace Windu and Yoda talk to him about later. But
Yeah. It's a good dynamic. I mean, I think anyone who's really dealt with like a high school student can relate to some of this. You know, like, yeah, maybe my senses are just as attuned. Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's awkward, I will say that, but it's fun to watch. And again, that's intentional, right? We are supposed to think, "Ooh, this is awkward, a little bit cringe." That's the point.
yeah,
This
we're
isn't.
highlighting Anakin's volatility, or like just he's unformed. Yes, he's still kind of all over the place and not who he should be yet.
Yeah, exactly. So I really appreciate that. And I was going to say this too. Maybe I mentioned this before. I can't remember, but just if I repeat myself, sorry. But I remember hearing that Hayden Christensen really intentionally tried to match James Earl Jones's tones and voice. Like he's trying to talk here as Vader would talk. Like that's his delivery, is what I've heard. That he wasn't just. I mean, I'm sure he had some creative freedom in that, but I've heard that was his goal, right? Like how would Vader say these lines? So I just think that's a nice touch on Hayden's part, that he's thinking about that. Like he's trying to make this one character. This isn't like, oh, here's my take on Anakin versus James Earl Jones' take on Anakin as Vader later or whatever. But so just a nice touch.
Do you know? Yeah, do you know if he said that specifically about this movie, or was it Revenge of the Sith, or do you know when he's?
Oh, I thought it was for both. I thought it was just
Really?
kind of the way he approached the character.
Because I know for sure you can definitely hear in Revenge of the Sith after Anakin has turned to the dark side, where yeah, people critique his acting in that movie, especially when he gets to the dark side, where he's very monotone and very kind of like emotionless. Where that was the specific direction that Lucas gave James Earl Jones back in 1977 for Episode 4, when they were working on his recording sessions for Vader. Lucas kept telling him like, no, this guy is kind of like barely human. Like he doesn't have much emotion left. He's kind of just numb to everything. So don't put a lot of emotion into it. And so I think that was, I have heard that quote as you talked about Hayden talking about, oh, I'm trying to emulate that kind of Darth Vader-ish quality. I don't know, because he definitely does get emotional. He has a lot of that spirit in him. But you definitely see it in the moments when he gets darker, when he taps in the dark side more. Which could be this scene. I'm not saying it's not. I just was wondering if you'd heard when what movie he was talking about, or what, if it was a specific part of his performance, or if it was just maybe didn't mean just overall in general. But I just know, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because so many people criticize his performance and say, oh, he's very kind of stiff and unemotional or emotionless. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's what Vader's performance was, especially when at Revenge of the Sith, when he turns into when he turns, that's what he's evoking there, and that's and that's specifically what Lucas asked for, at least for James Earl Jones. So you'd assume he'd be giving Hayden the same direction if he wants him to tap into that Vader character. So, so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because yeah, that's one I like to come to the defense of Lucas and Hayden there when people start to criticize him there. It's like, well, that's you don't have to like it if it bothers you, great, but don't say it's a mistake, because it actually was intentional. You don't have to like it, but don't say that they missed something there. Like, no, they were trying to do that.
Right. Yeah, and Hayden's not a bad actor. I mean, if you see his performance as Anakin again under Dave Filoni in the Ahsoka series, very different. And Dave was trying to be very different. He's trying to go for that more Clone Wars Anakin. He does great. He does a great job. So lots of emotion. He's happy. I mean, yeah.
He's not capable of showing emotion. He was directed not to do that. Yeah,
exactly. I think it was Mark Hamill that said that, defending them. And I think I brought this up on the podcast before. But Mark Hamill was defending some of the prequel guys. I think it was Hayden specifically. He was defending by saying, "Hey, don't attack the actors. Like, they're just doing what was on the page. That's what George told us to do back in 1977 or whatever." And so I appreciated Mark Hamill speaking up. That was years ago. That wasn't a recent thing, but
yeah, I remember him saying that. Yeah, a long time
I appreciate
ago.
that, because I mean, we've talked about this. Attack of the Clones and the prequels in general get a lot of criticism, and I think a lot of it's unwarranted. Could there be some things that could have been done better? Sure. I mean, nothing's perfect. There's even critiques we could have of the original trilogy, right? But I don't know. It's good, and I think we're meant to feel a lot of these ways. So Anyway, I know I keep saying that, but I just watching Hayden again, and I just wanted to bring that up. I couldn't remember if I brought that up,
No,
but
I
it
don't
was
think you
very
had, and
intentional.
so I'm glad you brought that up because it's a good point. Yeah, yeah, these movies, yeah, a lot of the criticisms I've noticed are people critiquing them for not being the movies that they wanted them to be. And it's like, well, yeah, if you wanted the movies to be a different way, great, but don't say that this movie made a mistake because it didn't do what you wanted it to do. It's like, no, this is what Lucas wanted. And he said he's very happy with the way these movies turned out. And he, again, if you want to, I've said this before, I think I said this maybe even last time or the time before, but if you want to see Lucas write dialogue that's more realistic or an acting from his, getting acting performances from his actors that were more nuanced or more, um, I don't know, more pleasing to the general audience, then go watch American Graffiti or go watch THX 1138. There's much more nuance and performances in that, and better dialogue. Even he had a lot of help to get the dialogue to where he needed to be. But in these movies, he didn't have as much help. Even though in this movie, he did have another writer come help him. Um, Episode one, that's the first Star Wars movie where Lucas had no help with the dialogue. He wrote that entirely by himself, and people criticize the dialogue of being too wooden or being a problem. It's like, well, he could have very easily done what he did in the other movies and had someone help him polish the dialogue if he wanted to. He felt that wasn't a priority. He felt that for my movies, for this style, I'm not going to worry about making the dialogue this Shakespearean, beautiful Aaron Sorkin screenwriter level stuff that's going to win an Oscar. He wanted to be in that style of the kind of cheesy Flash Gordon movie serials from like the 30s where the dialogue is a little clunky and the acting's not perfectly, it could be a little wooden or a little stiff sometimes. He That's reminds him of this thing he loved as a kid. That was the style of it. For me, it's like I think of Power Rangers. When I watched Power Rangers as a kid, I took it very, very serious. Like this is the most intense thing ever. And I watched it again as an adult. Like this is really cheesy and really like this is. I am not the audience for this as an adult. This is clearly
Uh,
for kids. But it didn't mean it doesn't mean like I went back in time and decided to hate it as a kid. Like no, I still loved it back then and it worked for me back then. Yeah, I think it's the same thing happening here a lot of the times, whether it's performance or dialogue or all those things that people criticize. You don't have to. I'm not asking anyone to like it. I'm just saying
yeah, right,
recognize that it's not a mistake. Recognize that they're not stupid
right.
for doing it this way. That it was intentional. They didn't miss it. They weren't trying to write Shakespeare and failed. They were trying to write a 1930 space opera.
Yep, exactly. And I appreciate that. I just, yeah, like if you want to criticize because you don't like it, okay, but let's be fair in the criticism. Just know what the real heart was behind it. Yeah, I get that. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know the answer to your question though about Hayden, like when he was thinking about that. I was always under the impression it was just kind of his take on Anakin, but maybe you're right. Maybe it was just in the Revenge of the Sith. I'm not sure. And I don't have the quote before me. That was several years ago. I heard that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard that
I
one
came
too. It could
unprepared.
just be. No, you're good. Well, I mean, I try to have the quotes in front of me. There's so many, it's hard to keep track of them. But yeah, because I definitely see that in the Vader scenes of Hayden's performances when he's really tapping in the dark side. But you probably, if it is a transition into the dark side, then there is probably peppered throughout his performances those kind of moments where he's a little more monotone and kind of robotic.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
anyway,
boy.
but
If any of
so I'm glad
you,
you brought that up. That's a good point.
yeah, I appreciate it knowing that. So just want to share that. And if any of you fans out there who have some spare time and you like to do like voice editing and stuff, you can get one of those Vader voice changers and put Hayden's lines in there and see how it comes out. I'd love to hear it. That'd be awesome.
That's literally what they did for the Obi-Wan show, right? If you think about that, it's Hayden's performance with
Wow,
Vader's
I
voice
didn't
on
know
top
that.
of it.
That's cool. I did
Right?
not know
And
that.
so, at
Huh.
least for that scene where he's, where they just go back and forth between his voice. But I wouldn't be surprised. I think, well, I don't want to say this for 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure it's Hayden's performance with James Earl Jones' voice layered on top of it.
Wow, I did not
Which
know that.
I think that's what I'm guessing. I know for sure. Obviously, it's in that scene where it's both Hayden and you can
Oh
hear his
yeah.
voice transition from Vader into Hayden, and the only way to kind of do that is to do that with like the deep fake voice. But
Deep fake. That's it right there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
yeah. But yeah, that'd be a cool experiment. Yeah, to kind of put Vader's voice over it, over Anakin's performance here, and see if it works. Especially in Revenge of the Sith when he turned that, people make fun of that line where he says, "What about the other Jedi scattered across the galaxy?" Like he delivers that line very, very monotonely, and everyone kind of criticizes that. I'm like, I bet you if you put Vader's voice on that, it would sound just fine. But we'll see.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be fun. So if anyone's got time to do it, Post it for us. We want to see
Yeah,
it.
I could do that. I've done it before. I've
Yeah.
messed with those voice things a couple
Hey, there you
times.
go.
But yeah,
That'd be
maybe when my
awesome.
computer, maybe when I have a decent working computer. Right now, I have more of a just a block of plastic and wires. It's called that's not really a computer right now, but
Yeah, that's
one day
cool.
I like to do that. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. I would love that. Yep. So stay tuned. Nice. Okay, sorry, I keep detracting us, but
No, you're good.
lots to say.
No,
Lots
no,
to say.
you don't detract us ever. This is where
That's
we're going where we need to go.
right.
Um,
All right,
yeah.
so back
So
to
the next scene.
Zam.
Okay, yeah.
Now we're at Zam.
And this is just her getting the droid sent off, right? Okay, cool. Yeah. Only thing I'll say is I loved this droid as a kid. I always thought the droid was really cool looking when I was a kid. I always would pretend I was Obi-Wan hanging from the droid, like in my basement. I had this little like pull-up bar my dad had in the basement, just hanging from the ceiling. So I would like swing on that, and pretend it was, or I'd like hold like a basketball or something, like run around the house pretending I was like Obi-Wan flying through the forest.
That's
I
awesome.
thought that scene was so cool as a kid. So
It is really cool. Yeah, I do like the design too. It's like a mix between like a TIE fighter and a probe droid. It's kind of cool. I like it.
yeah, like
Yeah.
the curved and kind of swoopy it is too. Yeah, cool
Mm-hmm.
color. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, but no dialogue there. All just straight music and the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. And I'm guessing, I don't know if this scene. I don't know, now I'm wondering. I don't know if that scene was added later or not, or if that was originally part of the. Was supposed to be like the first introduction of Zam and the robot, or if the robot just magically showed up at the window for the first, or not magically, but just suddenly showed up at the window. If that would be the first time you see it, so I'm not sure if this scene is included in that kind of reshoot with Django and Zam. So I don't know. Hard to find out. I just thought of that, but
Yeah. It's very Lucas though. Like it's cutting between, like reminds you there's bad stuff happening. Like that's what Lucas does. He doesn't let you just sit around and do the exposition very long. Always cutting in between the threats. Yep. Even if it's just a quick like 2-second shot like that or whatever. Yeah.
and then yeah, we could go. I mean, there's not much to that scene other than
Yep. Sounds good to me.
cut back to where we were with Obi-Wan and Anakin. I do want to say just another with Padme's room there. You have those blinds and have the light coming through them. So that's very noir, film noir. That again, this is the movie or the murder mystery Star Wars episode, right? So we're dealing in that kind of genre now, and so there's all these clues throughout the whole movie that we're kind of in that mode. And a lot of that, or one big example of that, is this low key lighting with like the light shining through the blinds, and that's very detective story. Cigars and smoky rooms with light streaming through the blinds, and that's very reminiscent to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's a great feel, and we'll see that a couple times. Revenge of the Sith and then Clone Wars, they'll play that up. It's a good vibe for good murder mystery.
For mystery, yeah, just like ooh.
I'm surprised it's not raining. That's the only thing that's missing, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they probably wanted to. That would have been a nightmare to film, though. And I mean,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
look how much rain always makes things complicated. Look at like how difficult the set was to film for the Django fight
Oh
scene.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they probably wanted to save the rain for Camino too, since
Save it for Camino. Mm-hmm.
but still, that rain filming in the rain is no fun. I can attest to that. I just shot a video in the rain last week, at the middle of the night, and it looks good on film, but oof, it's rough to film in. So
It was a pain.
especially if you're flying through Coruscant, just another thing like rain hitting them in the face and having to render all that with CG too. Like I'm sure ILM was like, please don't do that. Please don't give us another thing on top of the million things we have to do already.
Mm-hmm. At least we got the nighttime, right? It is dark.
Yep.
Yep. So backing up just a hair, so we get this conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin that you brought up earlier, and where Anakin says he's dreaming about his mom. Does Obi-Wan miss it here? You know what I mean? Like, because like, should he have picked up that these are more like premonitions rather than just dreams? Because Obi-Wan just kind of says, "Well, dreams pass in time. Like, oh, just give us some time, you'll be fine." Did he miss something there? Like, do we get a glimpse of his immaturity here? Not like
interesting.
not like character wise, but just in his own training. Like, he's not to that point yet. He's still younger on the master side of things.
I guess I wouldn't think that way. Like, what would he have supposed to have picked up on? Because all Anakin says is like, I've just been dreaming about my mom. And I think dreams are, I guess we assume, normal for people to have in this world. But like when Luke goes into detail about what his vision he sees, like the city in the clouds kind of thing with Yoda, and presumably Anakin explains his dreams to Yoda, his visions to Yoda in Revenge of the Sith. That's once it's explained, then he um, it's becomes obvious to Yoda that, oh, this is a premonition of the future, potentially, or maybe 100% certainly it is. Um, I mean, it's an interesting thought. I had never thought about it that way. It doesn't mean it's not, but I had never really thought that Obi-Wan was missing something here. Just Anakin just says, "Oh, there's a dream," and I think Obi-Wan correctly says, "Oh, dreams pass in time. Like it's not a big deal." Um, but maybe he should have. I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I'm just curious because we see kind of a parallel to this in one of the Clone Wars arcs when Ahsoka starts having dreams about Padme. um, where Padme's going to be threatened, like her life is going to be threatened, and it's in that particular episode, you see Ahsoka. The first dream, she's kind of like, okay, that was a little weird, and then by the second or third time, she goes to Yoda, and is like something okay, and then Yoda kind of identifies it right away, like, oh yeah, you're having premonitions. And then I don't know, like I just wonder if this is kind of a parallel story to that, like how a very, very young Obi-Wan responded versus a more mature Yoda responded. Because it's not a one-off, I could see where it's like, hey, one or two maybe, but I get the sense here that Anakin's like, he's not sleeping well, and it's just happening frequently enough that you think maybe if someone like Yoda heard that, I'd be like, let's look into that a little bit more. Whereas like Obi-Wan, who's just, I'm not criticizing him, but just where he's just young, because he's a really young master. I mean, he basically went from Padawan to master. He didn't have that Jedi Knight phase really, so, and not master on the council, but like master Padawan. So, I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering that.
Interesting. I never thought about that. It's cool
just
thought. Yeah.
Inexperience of Obi-Wan, and I say that as one who's been in a leadership role, very inexperienced, where I've missed warning signs like that. Yeah. I didn't know if that was an intentional thing by George or if we're not there yet.
I mean, it's definitely intentional to the fact that, it's not revealed in this scene what the dreams are about or what's going on. I think the audience is probably not meant to think much of the dreams at this point either. So it could just be like, he as simple as I don't want to reveal it yet, so Obi-Wan's not going to pick up on it just because of that. Or it could be, as you say, a way to show that Obi-Wan's not seeing Anakin as clearly as he could. Like Obi-Wan or like Mace Windu and Yoda say later, like, Obi-Wan says, well, he's become arrogant, and Yoda says, well, the older Jedi are arrogant too. Like, don't, you're not so hot yourself. Watch it,
hint, hint.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that could be part of that. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
I'm just curious. I don't know if George has said anything on that, because you get the sense that, like, the way Hayden plays this scene before they start talking, like he looks like just the way he's acting. That George is saying, hey, we want Anakin to look at Obi-Wan like, I need some help, because the look he gives to Obi-Wan is like, I need to talk about something. He's just kind of fidgeting there, and he gives Obi-Wan this look like, are you going to talk to me? Like, I need some help. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Again, I could just be reading that in, but this is not Nathan's thoughts. We want to know what George thoughts. These are just questions from Nathan, if you've heard anything. So,
yeah, I haven't heard Lucas talk about that, about Obi-Wan in this scene specifically, but yeah, that's a good thought, because it does. Yeah, that's not entirely outside the realm of possibility, especially considering Obi-Wan's arc throughout this movie, where he needs to, understand and trust his apprentice a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we do get other glimpses throughout both the Clone Wars and then Revenge of the Sith that Obi-Wan, he didn't necessarily fail Anakin, but there were times where Anakin needed him that Obi-Wan wasn't there, and we get that sense that it is a part of their relationships or their relationship. For one reason or another, like we'll get to it in Revenge of the Sith, but I always thought Palpatine kind of manipulated the situation so that Obi-Wan would leave to go to Utapau, so he'd have the chance to tempt Anakin. But we also get other situations in the Clone Wars and in Revenge of the Sith. Like Obi-Wan never opens up about Padme to Anakin. We never get this like. I mean, we get a little bit at the end of Revenge or this movie, Attack of the Clones. We don't get this full-fledged like conversation where Obi-Wan goes, Anakin, you need to put this aside, man. Like this isn't gonna work. He always kind of skirts the issue. And then in Revenge of the Sith, we get this sense of like he's known the whole time that there's a relationship here. He's just kind of choosing to turn a blind eye towards it. So I don't know. I've just always wondered. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what I always picked up. Where Obi-Wan just kind of barely skirts around it, and we get that in the Clone Wars a few times. Where Obi-Wan kind of he knows, like say hello to Padme for me, that kind of stuff. Like he knows it, but he never like says, Anakin, you're gonna lose your Jedi knighthood. We never get that conversation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I wonder if this is part of their relationship that George is establishing here. Whereas just there's times where just Obi-Wan really loves this kid, but he's just not picking up on what needs to be said or not doing what needs to be done for one reason or another. I don't think Obi-Wan's being malicious here at all. I just think my sense is maybe he's just inexperienced. And that's just, again, coming from a guy who's in leadership who's very inexperienced. He's made a lot of mistakes. So I don't know. I'm just curious. I don't know if you've heard anything on that, or we can save that for another time too. But.
I haven't heard anything that I can think of off the top of my head. Lucas talking about that. Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't heard Lucas really talk too much about Obi-Wan and his training of Anakin and whether he made good decisions or bad. I know that, and we talked about this before, but like I think there is sometimes a little too much. And you correctly said like Obi-Wan doesn't fail Anakin. It's not like Obi-Wan's fault or anything, but there's a lot of. I think I've definitely felt this way for a while. That that it was the Jedi's fault largely what happened to Anakin, Obi-Wan included, and I don't. Lucas doesn't really talk about that much. Or doesn't ever really bring that up as far as I know. So I don't want to, go too far in that. But I do. But like you said, I do. There is like the question of like how does Obi-Wan deal with Anakin and Padme's relationship? Like he knows there's something. Like how much does he know? Like does he know they're married? Does he know? Like as far as he knows, they just still like each other, but they're not doing anything about it, or does he think they're secretly together? How much does he know about them? Because it's never. He obviously he says in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin's the father, isn't he? Like he knows at that point he's figured out what's going on, but it's I've always wondered like what's Obi-Wan doing with the Anakin and Padme thing? Like how much does he pick up on? How much does he not? How much does he allow? Just because I like this kid, so I'm not gonna call him out too much like you said. So that's a good question. I'm curious to find out if there's anything in the screenplays or anything in the interviews I find about George or with George that I could find about that.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, I don't really have any answers for that.
Okay. I'm curious because. Oh, go ahead. What?
No, I was just saying another failure for me. I don't have any.
That's okay.
To back me up right now. Sorry.
No worries. We've talked a lot about how Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're meant to be brothers, not necessarily father and son. Like we talked about that with Qui-Gon. I mean, we'll get glimpses of that, right? But Qui-Gon was really kind of set up to be the father figure Anakin needed. And Obi-Wan kind of got thrust in there as the older brother. And there is some of that, right? Like Anakin will say to Padme, he's like a father to me, So there's some of that dynamic, but I think I could be wrong, but it seems like George has always portrayed this more as that awkward brother raising the younger brother situation, because the dad's no longer in the picture. And I'm just curious if that's kind of what's going on here. And we do get a little bit of clarity. I mean, this is the clearest Obi-Wan will be in Attack of the Clones. Like he says here, hey, just be mindful of your thoughts. They're betraying you. You've made a commitment to the Jedi Order. You can't just run off with this girl, that kind of thing. And then again, he'll say it at the end. I'm like, you'll be expelled from the Jedi Order, So he is letting him know, like, hey, I see your attachment. I see your love for this. Maybe not attachment, but I see your love for this girl. And you need to be careful. But then afterwards, he kind of turns a blind eye the rest of the time. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out this relationship a little bit more and understand it. Like, what does George want us to see here? I don't know. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's part of it. Like if George is intentionally trying to give us this like older brother, younger brother relationship, kind of awkward. Or if George didn't think anything of it and he just wrote it because he liked it. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, it is tricky. I haven't looked too much. I need to look into what Lucas has said about Obi-Wan specifically more because haven't really looked into that as much. Mostly because Obi-Wan doesn't play a huge role in the very first film, but obviously he plays a bigger and bigger role as movies go on. So because of that, I definitely need to look into his what Lucas says about Obi-Wan, because he does talk about the going from Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan in terms of Anakin's master, right? And how first Obi-Wan's not really excited to take on the kid, and then also, but eventually
Mm-hmm.
does care about him. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that idea of like Qui-Gon being the father that Anakin needed. I think the first, I don't know, I think a lot of people, Dave Filoni says that in, I think it's The Mandalorian, um, behind the
Mm.
scenes thing. He
Mm-hmm.
brings that up.
Right.
And that, yeah, I'm trying to figure out, is that how Lucas feels, or because I never heard Lucas say anything that, and well, I guess the first place I probably encountered that idea was in the Tartakovsky micro series, which again Lucas didn't have a whole lot of involvement with. He had some, but where Anakin says something like, "As far as your training goes, you're no Qui Gon Jinn,"
Yes. Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
Obi Wan says, "It's okay, I miss him." Or Anakin catches himself, he's like, "I'm sorry," and Obi Wan says, "No, I miss him too." And so this idea of that's that scene where Anakin gets knighted. It's like, no, we need to become brothers as opposed to master and student, and so that idea is like it was Qui Gon the father that Anakin needed and Obi Wan wasn't, or is Obi Wan? I don't, that's one of those things. Like I feel like I might be wrong about that. Where I think maybe Anakin or Obi Wan is. Um, maybe Lucas doesn't have a problem with how Obi Wan trains Anakin, other than when he brings up in this film where Yoda's like, "Hey, you can be arrogant too, so watch it." So I don't know. Yeah, that's a tricky one. There's not it's not always clear what Lucas means. Um, well, about anything, a lot of things, but and that relationship in particular, I need to learn more. I need to find more Lucas quotes specifically about Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship. So that'll be my
Mm.
homework, because I need, especially
Okay.
for this movie, because I want to. That's a great question, and I really want to have an answer for that, and especially going forward to have really define what is Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship, and are they where they need to be? Where are they lacking? Where are they doing really well? Are we meant to see this as a failed experiment, or is it actually going well? I mean, it's obviously by Revenge of the Sith that relationship is clearly solid and good, that brotherly relationship there. But how are we meant to see this? Is this supposed to be just the natural progression of a master and student, where it's just there's the tension there, or is there too much tension here where that needs to be, where someone else would have been a better fit? So I don't know. That's a
Right.
tricky one. So I
It
want
is
to.
tricky.
That'll be my homework. I'll have to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious because I want to understand this relationship. Excuse me. And we talked about that with Phantom Menace at the end, the duel of the fates. Right. There's the fate of Anakin in that battle. We've talked about that. Um, but also, George did say this is more, I think, when he was commenting on Episode 4. Obi-Wan does feel a sense that he failed Anakin. I mean, he say that flat out in Episode 3. I failed you. And then he say it again in Episode 6. He doesn't say I failed, but he says I was wrong. I thought I could train him as good as Yoda, and I was wrong, right? So there is some sense, and I don't remember the quote, but George did say that Obi-Wan carries some of that on his shoulders, that he has the sense of like, I didn't do what Anakin needed in some sense. Yeah. So, and Anakin's just really quick to abandon Obi-Wan. Like we'll see that when he gets to the Tuscans here. I mean, he immediately blames Obi-Wan. He says, "Oh, Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back," And I mean, obviously, I'm not saying Anakin has no love for Obi-Wan, but I do wonder if there's this sense of Anakin holding that grudge of like, look, I know you didn't want me as your Padawan. I know I'm here because Qui-Gon told you. Qui-Gon's the man I should have been with. I know that, and this is your fault because you're holding me back. I've wondered how much of that is written into Anakin as a character.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that Obi-Wan and Anakin both feel that there's a problem with their
Yes,
circumstance. Yeah, but the
like it's
question is, does George
dysfunctional.
feel like that? Yeah, the question is it actually, or is it just how they perceive the situation? Yeah,
Right.
that's
And I
tricky.
was trying to find the quote. In Clone Wars, there was a canceled arc where Obi-Wan and Anakin go to Utapau, and they have this amazing conversation, foreshadowing Anakin's fall, because Anakin's trying to deal with the loss of Ahsoka, how she left, and Obi-Wan's kind of dismissing it almost, where Anakin says, "How would you feel, Master, if I let you down?" And Obi-Wan says, "I know that'll never be a problem." But I thought he mentioned something about Qui-Gon in that. It could be the Tartakovsky series I'm thinking of, like the line you brought up earlier. But
Yeah, I also want to look back into, I think it's the Mortis arc when Qui Gon shows up to Anakin, talks with him, and um, and or no, or and Obi-Wan. Like I want to find any more scenes where Qui-Gon shows up and talks to everybody and see how they. I can't remember exactly what they say there. I'm really not as knowledgeable on Clone Wars as I am with the movies. Obviously, just because I've seen them, been watching the movies since I was a little kid, and Clone Wars only not nearly as much. And there's way more Clone Wars than there is the movies. So just all those factors combined, I really don't know Clone Wars as well as I should. So I'm excited to go once we get to Clone Wars to really deep dive into them. But just for tracing the arcs of these characters throughout their stories, it would be helpful to go back and look at those scenes in particular. Um, that's a good because this is it's an important relationship, like as you pointed out, and we should figure it out as best we can going forward.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because it will come up later too. Like, how do they view each other, and how do they view? I mean, I think that's a big thing in helping us understand this movie, as well as all of them. Because I mean, it's just I bring it up here because it's kind of the introduction of it. But yeah, like when Anakin, he'll blame Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan, just all the same stuff we're talking about. I guess I won't rehash it all again. But we clearly see Obi-Wan views Anakin as a brother, and Anakin hints at Obi-Wan being a father figure.
Yeah,
he's really
the
bitter.
closest thing I have to a father. Yeah, he says that later.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think that plays out. I think George, that's intentional, right? George wrote that for a reason. So I'm just trying to figure out how should we think about their relationship and stuff. So, especially, I think Clone Wars helps with that because, like you said, this is like Anakin's bad day, and we're seeing some of that here. And but it plays out into who these characters are, and it'll affect the rest of the stories. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all the way, like we said, all the way up through episode 6. So, okay, well, I guess more questions there, but I wanted to bring it up and ask you if you heard anything.
No, I trust me. If I ever hear George say something, I always try to bring it up.
Yeah, so, that's good. That's good.
So yeah, if I'm quiet on something, or if I didn't bring something up, probably means I haven't heard anything.
But, okay, gotcha. Sounds good.
I always try to bring in Lucas's quotes when I can, but that's good. But also, I there's so many of them, so it's hard. Who knows? We could have some obscure Starlog magazine from 2001. He said something like, "Oh, that just unlocked everything," but I never would have known because I can't find that quote anywhere on online or anything. So yeah, I'll keep looking. Good. I'll keep hunting for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of good questions today, so I'll have to.
Next, it is okay if there's no
more
answer.
Prepared for the next one.
Well, like we said, George was notorious for not explaining things to us and letting us speculate. But we also see here that Obi-Wan gives 2 warnings to Anakin. It's like, well, hey, you can lose your commitment. You can lose the chance to be a Jedi. But also, she's a senator. You can't trust politicians. So we get this sense right away, at least how Obi-Wan feels about politicians. I don't know if that's how all the Jedi feels, but there's some mid-odds here. Did you have any comments on that? Because that kind of dictates the rest of the dialogue.
Yeah, every time we see the Jedi interact with or talk about politics, it's never in a positive light. Mace Windu clearly is not a fan of politics in Clone Wars. There's several episodes where he talks about that. Yeah, Obi-Wan. Yeah. So I think that's another myth. The Jedi have become too political. It's like no. They don't want anything to do with politics. They're forced into their relationship with them during the war. But yeah, I think Obi-Wan is kind of the mouthpiece of just the Jedi. Well, Obi-Wan is that center line, right? Again, Qui-Gon and Anakin are the Mavericks, but Obi-Wan represents just kind of like your just normal, average Jedi. He's the most prominent one that we see. Obviously, there's others we encounter, but he's the one who's in the spotlight the most. Or I think he really just represents the best of what a normal Jedi is. I think, so I think he is kind of speaking for a Jedi at large here. Because I don't think Lucas ever really contradicts this with any other Jedi. I mean, there's, you have Jedi like Barriss Offee, who obviously have their own views on stuff. And is it Krell?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's these other Jedi who have way different ideas, and obviously Dooku was a Jedi, and now he's got his own ideas about where the political state of the Republic is at. But in terms of just the normal Jedi view, I think Obi-Wan is very much the go-to when you want to know want to know what the Jedi are up to. You look at Obi-Wan and see what he's doing. Jedi, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Mace Windu are kind of like the 3 obviously they're the three main Jedi apart from Anakin that you look at and see what are the how do the Jedi feel about what's going on. So yeah, Jedi do not like politicians. And yeah, so it's like don't yeah, it's I like that's true. You point out the two problems with that everyone has with Padme. It's like, well, you can stop being a Jedi and you're gonna get caught with a politician. So those are two very very bad things.
Yeah,
Which of
that's a
course
big hit.
Anakin doesn't listen to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting because the Jedi serve the Senate. I mean, they're very tied to politics, but it's interesting here. Maybe we're just getting a glimpse of this time or this point in the timeline where the Senate's become corrupt. I don't know. Because Obi-Wan says here, like, politicians, they just care. I found that they just care about the people who fund them. And then he says this: they're in no means scared of forgetting the niceties of democracy. There's some pretty big words. It's like, wow. But you can, he says, in order to get those funds. That's what he says there. At least not on the economic politics. Oh, that's Anakin there. Okay, but yeah, there's some pretty harsh accusations for one who serves the Senate. I feel like this is like kind of similar to like seeing what the Secret Service would say about all the politicians they're protecting. I don't know.
I guess they don't. Well, did they? The Jedi are part of the judicial branch of the Republic government, so not really technically the Senate. They were well, they report to the Chancellor, I guess.
Ooh, there's a good
But
question.
yeah, this is kind of I know they're part of the judicial branch of the government. So, but that's not a big deal. But the point is, yeah, they are. They have to work with the politicians. They have to work with the government. But more or less, the Jedi can kind of are allowed to do what they want, and then that's when Palpatine starts getting more and more oversight over the Jedi. That's when they don't like that. But yeah, it's funny, yeah, just how harsh Obi-Wan is on the politicians. Which I think most people have that view on politicians in general. But that's why I think Padme does. She is that again. She is that the lotus that rises out from the murky mud. She's that beautiful thing amidst all the dirty, murky, dark filth and
Yeah,
she rises above it all, and so she is one of the few politicians that are that
yeah.
is actually good.
Which is
Her and
they
Bail Organa and all that. Yeah.
yes, and they do a great job at portraying that and fleshing that out more in the Clone Wars. She has some Padme in particular has a really nice arc in the Clone Wars season 3. Man, it's awesome. Where there's just full display. Like she's the only one who cares about her people. Everyone else is pretty much gone. There's a few, but most, yeah, it was really well done. So it's interesting though. I mean, I think, and that was one of the messages George wanted to say here in Star Wars is how can a good man become evil, and how can a democracy become a dictatorship? Those are his two main goals, and we see that. I mean, it's complicated, and it's not black and white. I mean, Padme's a good politician. Palpatine's not. I mean, he's good. He's good at what he does. He's evil.
Exactly. He's
and
talented as a politician, but yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting because like you can see Anakin, who's very tied to politics between the Chancellor and Padme. I mean,
Good point. Wow.
good night.
Point.
I could see where he'd naturally be like, no, I'm siding with the Chancellor. I mean, he says that in Revenge of the Sith. Like, I'll side with you. I'll side with, like, forget the Jedi. I'm with you, and I'm with the Chancellor. I don't care.
Didn't think about that. Yeah.
You can see just how politics gets so sticky here, and how Palpatine can manipulate it. And because I mean, who hasn't had that awkward conversation with some family member? Like you get that one family member who's like, "Man, that politician's horrible. It's a horrible person," and you're like, well, I don't know. I kind of like him or whatever."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know what to think, and it's really divisive. Yeah, and we see that right here. More awkward family dynamics, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Anakin's like, let's not talk about religion or politics, man. Like,
yeah.
Anakin's like, I don't want to let another lecture about this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, stop." Yeah, you get the sense of the family dynamics here that is so awkward in the Skywalker family. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and also just get a hint in there. I love Anakin's line. Well, the Chancellor doesn't appear to be corrupt. Just already, like your first shows you how much Palpatine has already kind of how much that persona he's been that part he's been playing and how effective that's been. He says it later in Revenge of the Sith. He's looked out for me ever since he arrived here. He's always been nice to Anakin. Anakin doesn't necessarily see him how he treats everyone else, but he's always been nice to me, and so I like him. And of course, Obi-Wan's Palpatine's a politician. He's still a politician, so politicians are not to be trusted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, even there, yeah, it's a quick throwaway. Or some of that dialogue is muffled in the background, right where we're looking at Padme's room, and so it's very much in the background, but it's still, Lucas doesn't, even though he's, again, we talked about, he says I'm the king of wooden dialogue, and he doesn't like writing dialogue that much. He still is not gonna. He's still a good enough storyteller. He's not gonna let the dialogue just be wasted. Like, it's not gonna. He's not gonna just have them say things just to say things. It's all adding to it, even if it's not the primary focus. Um, so yeah, all that stuff is important.
Yeah, and I like that George takes the time to. I mean, we get this glimpse of the foreshadow that's coming, right? Like Obi-Wan says, I have witnessed that Palpatine is very good at what do you say, persuading or following the passions of the people, or manipulating, something like that. So we already get this, like, Obi-Wan's already picking up on this sense of, like, yeah, Palpatine's kind of a snake. I can see this. I'm sure he's not even thinking Sith, just as politician, but then you get Anakin on the flip side of that. Oh, I think he's a good man,
Yeah, both of their positions on Palpatine are kind of have already started here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they'll both be played out, right? Like, this is a nice
Mm-hmm.
foreshadow. But George is also master of keeping the story moving. Because, I mean, can you imagine if you just had this whole scene just exposition? It's a political conversation. I mean, people would be like, yeah, okay,
The
whatever.
movie doesn't want to hear the politics. As the movie cuts to a different room, right?
Uh-huh. Because, yeah, like you said, it's all in the background. It's all muffled. Because what we're seeing on screen is the bugs coming in from that droid, just about ready to get Padme, and R2 kind of wakes up. Which I gotta say, like, every time I've ever watched this with any kind of girl ever, they always cringe at this scene. It's like, oh, gross. So, well done, George, at being bugs are gross, right? We'll talk about that with the Geonosians coming up, but
yeah, as a kid, I remember thinking those things were really creepy and gross, and yeah, the scene was like, whoa, it felt very, very different. It felt more like Indiana Jones-ish than Star Wars. I remember when I first saw this as a kid, because it's like, there's always the creepy crawlies in the Indiana Jones movies, but Star Wars, it's usually big monsters, or at least not tiny, creepy little alien bugs. It's usually, yeah, I don't know, Jabba the Hutt or something, or a Rancor or something. But now you have these creepy little worm cahoons, right? What they're called, yeah. Creepy, yeah, creepy little slimy bugs. But
yeah, nobody likes a good wormy thing.
yeah, little centipede
Yep.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, just nasty.
And also
I'm
the
just
fact.
thinking. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No. Oh, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about my 3-year-old daughter. She's seen all of Star Wars except for we didn't show her the Rancor scene. We didn't show her that one, but she's seen almost all of it, and this part creeps her out almost more than anything else in the entire saga. It just gets to her. Yeah, she can't handle it.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
like the
funny.
worst of a snake and the worst of a bug kind of combined.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't seen like Anakin getting fried to a crisp on Mustafar, has she?
Well, that's true. We did take her out for that.
Okay, I was like, wow, because I didn't see that until I was much older. I was like, wow.
That is true.
Good for her. Like, she has much more of a much more of a stomach for that stuff than I did at that age. Okay, that makes sense.
That's true. She didn't see him on fire.
Okay, yeah.
That's true.
What was I gonna say? Oh, and just the fact that I'm glad we had that scene with Zam and Jango, because Jango highlights in that scene, oh, these are very poisonous, and we wouldn't have had that knowledge. It's just been like, all these creepy. We'd have the audience would have put 2 and 2 together in the scene. Oh, these bugs are here to kill Padme or to sting her or something, or it's just creepy. Like, I don't, get rid of them. But we just had that added bit of information. Oh, these things are poisonous, so they're trying to poison her with these bugs. So that adds to the danger.
Definitely. Yep. And then I do think it's interesting how Anakin is the first to sense right away, or at least he gives the look, like he knows right away. Then Obi-Wan says, "I sense it too," and they rush in.
Yeah, I always like that moment. Yep.
You can tell he's really focused on Padme. You get that sense, like, yeah, he may not have the sharpest senses in the world, but he is very focused on Padme. What's going on?
Absolutely. Yep. And yeah, again, just great visual storytelling to let you know about the character. Like, Lucas is consistent. Like, it matters who senses this first. Not for this scene, but just for the overall arc of the story. It matters that Anakin is the first one to notice it. Yeah. And I love that I just love that when, obviously it was so cool to have him like run in, chop the bugs up. Um, and I was always waiting for like Padme's hair to be like caught on fire or something. He's like, oh, he was so close. How it also shows you how skilled he is. Like, wow, he was able to cut those things. They're like on her, and he just slices them up and doesn't touch. She doesn't get touched at all by the lightsabers. But that moment of Obi-Wan just jumping out the window, that's just that was the coolest thing. Again, that's why I love that scene as a kid of him hanging on the door. Like, Obi-Wan's so cool. And you get to see a bit of his reckless. He's not the super like straight laced. Like there is a bit of Qui-Gon in him, a bit of Anakin in him. It's rubbed off, and he's like, well, this is what needs to be done right now. So whoop, you think it'd be Obi-Wan who runs down to get the speeder,
Yes.
right? And Anakin be the one to dive out the window, but it's actually flipped here.
Mm-hmm. So. Exactly. Yep. And I appreciate that. It's a nice nod to his arc. His influence. He's always around these reckless guys. Yeah, it pays off a little bit. It's a cool scene. Like, this is the first time we see a lightsaber in episode 2.
Oh yeah, good call. Good point.
And Hayden just executes that move flawlessly. It's great. Nice move. Because you really get the precision. Yeah, the precision there of the Jedi is on display here with Anakin. And like these bugs are on Padme, and he's just swinging his lightsaber right at her, like inches away from her skin. It's totally fine. Yeah, it's really cool. And you get the sense how in control they are. Like Anakin knows exactly what he needs to do. Like he just runs right out. Like, stay here. I got this. I know what I need to do. And he runs straight for the speeder.
Yeah, Lucas has talked about this is kind of a normal situation. They're not like freaked out by this. It's kind of like the Jedi. You talked about this in episode 1, where the Jedi are used to getting in these weird situations or these crazy situations where they're chasing after someone or fighting impossible odds. It was just all in a day's work for them. They're not, they're making jokes in the speeder, like, oh, I couldn't find the one with the speeder that I liked, and then everyone's like, oh, they're rolling his eyes. They're not like, can you believe we're doing this right now? This is crazy. No, they're just like, yeah, this is normal for them. This is part of the job.
Yeah, I like that. You do get this funny interaction or maybe look on Obi-Wan's face as he's flying around on this thing, though. Like the very first one, you see him, he's kind of like being blown back. It's just holding on like, and then and then the second scene, we see him holding onto the droid as he's just almost being like rammed into by these other speeders. It's like, whoa. Yeah,
I kind of regret my decision now.
It is interesting. The prequels are oftentimes criticized because there's not a lot of emotion, and definitely a lot of emoting on the actors' faces. So I think like anytime, again, we've talked about how that's intentional, but anytime there is emotion, like it's meant to be really felt, I think. So I'm curious on what your take is here. Like, what are we supposed to learn with Obi-Wan kind of panicking? He's not panicking, maybe, but just like flying down the streets.
I think it's just normal. That's how you would react. You do what you need to do, but it doesn't mean like you're comfortable with it. I gotta take this droid to find out the droid's gonna get away. We need this. At least I need the droid for evidence. Maybe it'll take me back to its master. But yeah, he's clearly Obi-Wan doesn't like flying, right?
Yeah,
he's not a fan of Anakin's driving in the scene. He doesn't like flying in the ship later. So I think he's not a. George says he loved racing cars as a kid. He loves speed. He loves all these kind of chase scenes. I think Obi-Wan does not represent Lucas in this in the scene. I think Anakin's more like him, where Obi-Wan's probably more like, I don't know, Lucas's mom or something, who was always worried like, don't drive too fast. I'm scared. I'm gonna hit something. So I think that, and also just the fact that he's dangling very precariously over this 3-mile drop down to the bowels of Coruscant. I think it's just completely normal. It seems to me that he'd be freaked out. He's not like, and people, all Jedi are not supposed to feel fear. Like, don't let it control. Like, he can be freaked out, and as long as it's not taking over him, he's not cowering. He doesn't, hide in the corner and doesn't finish the job. He's like, whoa, this is freaky. I guess I'll just gotta get through this. This is a wild day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they feel the adrenaline at times. Yeah. Yep. So then we see Obi-Wan or Anakin. He runs to the speeder. He gets in the speeder to chase after. Obi-Wan's flying through the city, and then Sam here, the bounty hunter, realizes, I think I see something sitting on that droid. So he looks through a little binocular thing and sees there's a person hanging on to it.
All things didn't quite go as planned. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she takes it. There's a shot here, and again, tell me if George said anything or if you know anything. But I don't know. does Obi-Wan sense that she's about to shoot this thing? Like she pulls out her rifle and you can see the scope, like you can see kind of the infrared where he's hanging there, and it looks like it's zoomed in on him rather than the droid. And Obi-Wan kind of gives this look as he's going through the wind, like, I feel something. Is that the way to interpret that, or?
Yeah, Lucas, as far as I know, hasn't said anything specifically about that, but I know the shot you're talking about because I've also thought that too. I'm like, is he reacting to it? Is this just another shot of him just not being happy about flying through the streets right now,
Yeah.
or is he actually
Mhm.
reacting to something or sensing something's about to happen? It's obviously it's very much in keeping with the rest of the movies that the Jedi can sense things before they happen. That this could be him like, well, something's about to happen, or maybe he knows exactly what's about to happen, but he has no plan. Like he's not gonna just let go. Um, he can't really react to it, or it could be a surprise. Hard to say. Um, so yeah, nothing definitive, but yeah, I think either option is possible. I don't think either one of those is outside the realm of possibility. So
Mm-hmm. I also find it interesting she shoots the droid and not Obi-Wan. I'm just wondering if maybe, like, why that is.
get
Maybe
rid
it
of
doesn't,
evidence, maybe.
doesn't tie her to the
Mm-hmm.
crime as much. Because then, I mean, if they just find a guy falling on the floor, that's different than being shot, I didn't think about the evidence thing. That's a good call, too. Yeah, just destroy it all. Yep.
Exactly. Oh, that's not my droid. I never saw that thing before. That's good. Yeah.
Right.
And George just talked about the kind of symmetry of this sequence where it starts off with Obi-Wan hanging from a bad guy vehicle flying thing, and it ends with Anakin hanging off the bad
Mm,
guy's vehicle.
that's cool. I didn't
So
pick up on that.
yeah, where it's just there's always he always adds shape to things. They don't always have to be the beginning doesn't always have to pattern with or have to rhyme with the end, but there's always some thought put into the shape and the journey of it all. So that's just one little thing where it's like it wasn't just rain. Like, oh, what should happen next? Oh, maybe he could hang off maybe Anakin can be hanging on the thing, or he just jumps onto it. Like no, just like Obi-Wan did. Like that's Obi-Wan falls and Anakin falls. There's
Hmm,
there's the similar things happening. Um,
that's
there's
cool.
thought put into it. Just in case anyone, in case there's any doubt at this point, Lucas thinks things through.
That's right.
And but it can still, it's still fun, still exciting, but there's still its purpose to it is not just there to be exciting. Also, it's there to, you know, yeah, there's poetry there. There's some shape to it. It has significance also because of what happened to Obi-Wan earlier. That Anakin jumps and lands on a ship and hangs from it just like he did. And it also kind of tells you they're both, yeah, they have that. They can when they're in Jedi protector mode, when they have to do what the job is, when they're doing what needs to be done, they both will take those leaps. Literally, they'll be reckless, and you're seeing character through action, which is a very hard thing to do when you're writing a movie, but it's a very necessary thing to do. Is that you don't just tell people who these people are, or don't have other characters tell the audience who this character is. You have to
Mm-hmm.
show it through action. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I never picked up on that. Nice. Yeah, I mean, George always said, it's like poetry. We want to rhyme. It's kind of neat. Yeah. I guess we better wrap this up. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a kind of a long chase scene, so we can get into it next time.
It is a long chase. Really fun though. It's
Mhm.
man, just fun. Just a fun adventure. Music's great. The visuals are great. The banter's great. We kill out banter.
Obi-Wan gets the jokes. Yeah.
He does a very good. Yeah, it's very Obi-Wan. He did a good job. Yeah, I like it. What took you so? And Obi-Wan or Anakin just, Master, it took me a while to find the right speeder.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of banter per se in episode 1, but just like we got a lot in episode 4. I was thinking, yeah, but I feel like we see a lot of banter, in particular episode 5, between Leia and Han, and this reminds me of some of that. I don't know George often puts banter. I mean, that's just kind of part of Star Wars. those quips and little banter stuff. So it's just a nice, just keeps it going. I like it.
Yep, I do too. Yeah, well, I'm excited to get into it for the next time. But for now, good podcast, man. Another one in the books.
Yeah, that's right. Another one bites the dust. Yeah, it's fun, man. I love it. Good questions. Or thanks for, I should say, good answers to my questions. I appreciate you answering my questions.
I answered none of them, so it was all just I don't know. I haven't heard George say anything. I don't know. I haven't heard George say anything. And then still
Yeah.
managed to talk around it and make it sound like answered, even though I didn't. So no, you did have good questions, and so I do want to. I'll definitely be playing this podcast back to like, okay, what were the questions Nathan asked? I got to write those down because I have a list of your questions that you ask on all the podcasts, so I can like have those in my mind when I'm researching going forward. So
Nice.
no, it was good.
Well, I appreciate you taking them. I do. I have lots of fun questions. So and like I said, George doesn't answer all of them. So some of it's just speculation, and that's part of the fun of it. And George talked about that. Like some of it's just easier when you don't go into it. I read a quote by that one that you sent me, where he said, "The more I tried to explain the Force, the worse it got."
Yep,
So
I was just gonna bring that up. Yep.
The simpler it is, the better it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, George is known for some of that, where he'll, just be like, I don't know, just make up something. I think he did that. I think he did that for the question when people were like, how come Obi-Wan didn't recognize R2? He's like, oh, they're just dime a dozen. Like he didn't. It just that was it. That was the only answer. So I know sometimes us as fans tend to go way deeper than George ever meant, but it does make it fun. So
yeah,
it's a good time.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Of course.
Nice. Well, as always, thank you, my friend. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I love it. So until next time.
Yep.
What are the old cartoons? How they used to end? Find out next time.
Tune in next week for another exciting episode of Star Wars Unlearned. Yeah.
yeah. Will Obi-Wan fall to his death?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the cliffhanger thing. Yep. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much
those are always fun.
Vibe of this stuff. Yeah. It's true. Like, yeah, this is exactly. It's so funny that we're ending right here because that's totally where this would have ended if it was like a serialized, episodic thing. Like, Anakin, or Obi-Wan hanging from the thing. Well, Obi-Wan, or actually, where it would end is where Zam shoots the droid, and Anakin, or Obi-Wan's falling. Like, will Anakin, save his master, get in time to save his master? Will he get there? That whole thing. That's totally where they would end it. The cliffhanger.
Will the bounty hunters get away?
Yeah, the term cliffhanger came from those movie serials because characters are always hang at the end of cliffs at the end of those episodes. So, yeah, so cool.
There we go.
We have our cliffhanger ending. We'll get on to the next one, even though we know what happens. But
yeah, yep, that's right. But hey, you never know. Someone listening may not. So thanks for sticking with us.
If you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movies, I'm sorry because we're spoiling everything.
Yeah, we've spoiled everything. Yep.
All right, that's it for this episode. Join us in the next one as we continue our series on Attack of the Clones. As always, thanks for listening, and on to the next one.